The Brigadier took a slow slip of his increasingly cold tea. He'd only made it a few moments ago, but the air was so cold now that it was chilling his drink faster than he could drink it. He glanced over to the doctor, still sat with his legs crossed and his eyes closed, and Stewart huffed a little, his breath hanging in the air in front of him as he shuddered a little. Outside he could hear people rushing back and forth. The ice field was closing in on the eastern coast of America. It would make landfall within the hour, and Europe would not be far behind. But there was other news. The weather was shifting violently. The entire planet was experiencing earthquakes at the same time as the ice weapon reached deeper and deeper into the crust, upsetting the careful balance which kept the Earth in place. And then he stopped for a moment, as though replaying his memory in his head. He'd seen something different. What had he seen? There was something new in the room, something which hadn't been there before. He turned back around and scanned the room. He peered curiously at everything, reviewing everything he had just seen. And then he saw it. How had he missed that? The doctor was sitting cross-legged, his hands resting gently on his knees, eyes closed and his face completely still, except for one tiny detail. The satisfied smile which had crept across his face. Just then the room was filled with a gush of wind. It seemed to grow warmer and lighter with a soothing blue aura all around. And then he heard them. The steady groan and whine of those engines he had heard for the first time so many years ago, and every time he had heard them since, it filled his heart with the joy of a schoolboy. As the thick square outline faded into reality, the doctor's eyes snapped open, and he bounded to his feet, wobbling a little from the time spent outside of his body, but the thrill quickly shook that off. "Doctor, by God, you found it!" the Brigadier exclaimed happily. "No, my old friend, I borrowed one. Come on, no time to lose." He took Stewart by the arm and led him through the door into the wide, open console room, like the inside of a massive Victorian library, all oaks and girders. Stewart stepped into the room slowly and cautiously. "My dear fellow," he stammered steadily, pointing around the room. "You've redecorated." The doctor spun around. "Yes, I don't like it either," he said, turning back. "Now, the temporal distortion field should kick in momentarily. Check those readings over there." The other doctor suddenly stood, appearing from behind the other side of the console. Excuse me, I'm sure the captain of the ship gives the orders," he argued. "I am giving the orders. Check those readings," the doctor replied with a sigh. The other doctor slammed a lever down and stepped around the console. "You check the readings. You're the companion here." "Will someone please tell me what is going on?" the Brigadier huffed. "Oh, no, wait. It's one of those crossover things, isn't it, with more than one of you?" The doctor tutted and returned his eyes to the console, while the other doctor crossed the room and took Stewart's hand. "Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart, my dear fellow, how are you?" he said, happily shaking his hand. "Oh, are you him?" Stewart asked, and the other doctor glanced back over his shoulder. "It's eerie, isn't it? Like looking into your own future." He looked back and scrunched up his face a little. The future is most certainly not looking bright. The room heaved suddenly, and the doctor let out a happy exclamation as he danced around the side of the console. "What the devil was that?" "The distortion field, it's got us," the doctor shouted back happily. "All aboard. Next stop, Skaldak's warship." The mighty ice warrior sat in his chair, resting his head casually against his fist and watching with delight as the ice field closed in on the coast of America. Very soon his vengeance would be complete. He would bury the Earth in ice and return in glory to the Empire of Mars. He could hear the music of veneration playing in his head, and when he closed his eyes he could see the scores of Martian warriors standing side by side to honor his triumphant return, and it filled his icy heart with joy. Suddenly the room blared with alarms. Strange symbols flashed up on screens all around, and Skaldak leapt from his chair with a ferocious growl, tapping at the controls and checking the data streams all over. Something was wrong with the distortion field. The energy signature was confused, as though the universe itself were bending around it and forcing it apart. "What is happening?" Skaldak demanded furiously, slamming his fist against the controls. "Report, damn you!" A gust of wind filled the room, and the ice warrior turned on his heel. "Impossible!" The TARDIS was distorting, its details stretching and warping all around as the bulb on top flashed on and off with a steady blue glow. With a thud, it stopped, and the TARDIS returned to normal, but something was different. The box was taller, slimmer. its paint a different shade of blue and its windows letting out a curious glow from within. The door creaked open, and the ragged grey-haired man stepped from within, his dusty coat flowing behind him with his scarf, and his eyes deadly serious, fixed on Skaldak. "Shut it down, Skaldak," the doctor demanded, his voice stern and his presence commanding as he stared down the mighty ice warrior. "This can go a couple of ways. They all end with that weapon being shut down. But I know you're an honourable soldier, so accept defeat and shut it down." "You dare to command me, Doctor?" Skaldak snapped furiously. "I do not know how you have done this, but it changes nothing. The Earth dies this day, Time Lord, and you will perish with it." Another figure stepped from the TARDIS, and the Brigadier stalked across the room, his revolver held high. "By order of the Unified Intelligence Task Force, I order you to stand down, soldier," he called out. "I am Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, and I order you to shut down that weapon." Skaldak howled with sinister laughter and let his armoured foot thud to the floor. "Ha ha! You think to pull rank on me, Brigadier?" he scoffed. "Martian law does not recognize your pathetic excuse for authority, and neither do I. But by all means, fire on me. Give me one more reason to annihilate your pitiful world." The doctor slowly reached up his hand and lowered Stewart's gun without breaking his gaze. Doctor, if you would be so kind, disable the weapon," he said very slowly, and Skaldak glared at him. The other doctor stepped slowly from the TARDIS door, sonic screwdriver at the ready, and closed the door behind him. "What sorcery is this?" Skaldak demanded, his gaze jumping between the two of them. The other doctor crossed the room to a control panel and held up his device. "Your sonic toy won't help you, Doctor. Martian technology is supreme. It would take years for your pitiful screwdriver to hack it." "He's right, Doctor. I can't break into the weapon's controls," the other doctor said quietly. "I can't shut off the fuel supply." The doctor simply smiled. "Fuel supply? Oh, we don't need to shut off the fuel supply, Doctor. We already have," he smirked. Alarms rang all around as immediately monitors began to flash red. On various maps, storm systems began to shrink and wither, cloud banks dissipating all over the globe. The ice cannon's energy level counter bleeping violently. "No! What have you done?" the ice warrior bellowed. The doctor fiddled with his screwdriver, adjusting some of the settings along the side. "Oh, nothing. All we did was land the exact same TARDIS on the planet when it was already parked on your ship," he explained. "Temporal distortion technology is so easily confused. When it tried to abduct my counterpart's TARDIS, it became baffled by the fact that it already had the ship where it was supposed to be. The resulting paradox backfired through your system, disabling the field and thus cancelling the side effects of the generators. In short, winter is over. Spring has come at last." "Oh, thank heavens for that," the Brigadier sighed. He could see it already. The world was starting to warm all over as the sun's rays could finally break through the clouds and shine on the planet. The snow would recede at last and all could return to normal. "But the weapon is still active, Doctor." "Yes, but with the storm gone, it no longer possesses the fuel supply necessary to terraform the planet. I doubt it'll even make landfall what it has left," the other doctor explained. "Brilliant move, Doctor." "Thank you, Doctor." The Time Lord smiled. "Always gratifying to be complimented by yourself." He returned his gaze to Skaldak. "You've lost, Ice Warrior. Leave this world now, and I promise you I will let you go in peace." Skaldak raised himself to full height and lifted his arms slowly. "You will not stand in my way again, Doctor," he growled, and without warning a massive pulse of sonic energy burst from his armour. A singular funnel was flung at the group and lifted them from their feet, hurling them across the room as they crashed against the wall with a thud. His head heavy as unconsciousness began to take hold, the doctor saw Skaldak move for the helm before darkness consumed him. Blurs became lines and lines slowly detailed as the doctor came around slowly, rubbing the back of his head. He looked up and saw Skaldak still standing at the helm. He could feel the ship's engines humming beneath them. It was in flight. The doctor steadily found his feet and hauled himself up, resting one arm against the wall as he glanced behind him. Stewart and the other doctor were stirring, but mostly still out cold. With slow, deliberate steps, he walked across the room and stood defiantly before the Ice Warrior. Skaldak turned from the helm and glared down at him.
"Not enough fuel to make landfall. You are correct, unfortunately," he growled. "But more than enough to bury an entire city in ice. And what better place to target than where it all began, Doctor?"
The doctor glanced out the window and saw the undoubtable cityscape of Moscow below them. He sighed to himself. Looks like Carson was right about the Ice Warrior targeting the Russians all along. "Skaldak, just give it up," the doctor said calmly. "What would your daughter say if she could see you now?" The Ice Warrior bellowed furiously, his armoured foot slamming on the ground with his entire weight behind it.
"Do not dare speak to me of my daughter," he roared. "Your world must suffer under Martian law for what you have done to me. And you will pay for corrupting my mind and ruining my life."
The doctor took a step back and placed a hand in his coat pocket, clutching his screwdriver and drawing it off to one side. "Skaldak, please, don't make me do this," he said calmly. "Just leave."
"Leave and go where, Time Lord?"
Skaldak demanded.
"There is nothing out there for me. My home planet is dying. My people despise me. My daughter is..."
He stalled on his words and growled.
"I have nowhere to go. All I have is my revenge, and I will claim it."
The doctor's gaze fell directly onto Skaldak's visor-shielded eyes, glaring through the glass. "Last chance, Ice Warrior," was all he said, his voice serious. But Skaldak merely scoffed.
"You've tried that already. Your toy is useless against Martian technology," he scorned.
"Yep, it would take years for my sonic screwdriver to hack your tech, you're quite right," the doctor admitted slowly, glancing at the floor before staring straight back at his foe with determination in his eyes. 482 years and 3 months, to be precise. Fortunately, I've been working on the calculations for a very long time," the doctor announced arrogantly, holding up his own screwdriver as the tip began to flash. With a swift movement, he pointed the device at the console with a low buzz. It all happened so quickly. Charts on screen saw their readings drop. All around, consoles sparked and whirred, all powering down. Monitors began to stall and flicker, their images frozen, their consoles useless. On the hull of the ship, the glowing tip of the weapon began to fade, its lights and power cores all shutting down and failing as the screwdriver's command worked its way through the entire ship. A single lone stream of computer coding shutting everything down and making the Martian warship hanging over Moscow little more than a decorative bauble in the sky. The doctor grinned. "Same screwdriver, 2 different points in time," he reclarified. Skaldak howled with fury, his teeth bared as he swung his mighty armoured arm and flung the doctor across the room. Turning back to the controls, he fumbled at them desperately as they sparked and hissed, completely ruined from the virus working its way through their systems. He couldn't repower the cannon, he couldn't restart the ship's controls. He was powerless. The Time Lord had bested him again, Skaldak realized with fury. His eyes thinned behind his visor.
"You may have stopped my cannon, Doctor, but you will not save this city," he growled. "You leave me no alternative, Time Lord. If I cannot have revenge, then I cannot return to Mars alive. I have nothing left to live for."
He took hold of the helm and spun it violently to the left. The whole ship lurched heavily off to the side. Everything not bolted down slid across the floor as the mighty starship began to dive. "Skaldak, what are you doing?" the doctor cried out.
"I will be exonerated in death, Doctor, and this city will die with me,"
the Ice Warrior roared as the ship soared through the clouds toward the city below. The The doctor panicked, tapping the side of his head with both hands. There had to be a way to stop him. He could use the sonic to hack the controls, but reaching for his pocket, he found he had dropped it when Skaldak struck him. The other doctor's screwdriver was on the floor across from him, but its calculations for hacking Martian tech had not been completed. He glanced across the room. The altitude counter was spiraling down out of control. He racked his brain. There had to be something he could say, something he could do to stop this mad Titan in his tracks, long enough for him to figure out a more permanent solution. Suddenly his eyes snapped open, and the Time Lord clambered to his feet, his face in a low scowl as he held out a long gangly arm and pointed directly at the Ice Warrior. "Skaldak, former Grand Marshal of the Martian Empire of Ice Warriors, I challenge you to a duel." The ship slowed and levelled out. Its engines ceased whining under the pressure and started to hum quietly beneath them, and the doctor let out a long sigh of relief, quickly halted as the mighty form of the Ice Warrior clunked around on the spot to turn and face him. Skaldak's fanged maw was curled into a grotesque smile.
"You challenge me, Doctor?"
he scoffed. The doctor held his ground. "I do. And under the rules of engagement as set forth by your own people, you are forbidden to take any action against this planet until such time as the duel is concluded," he recited.
"I know the law, Doctor,"
the Ice Warrior growled.
"Name your terms, Time Lord of Gallifrey."
The doctor straightened himself up. "If I win, you will turn this ship around and leave, never to return," he demanded. "Are my terms acceptable?" The Ice Warrior gave a single nod.
"But when I win, Doctor, the Earth is mine."